You want to see something cool?
Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is without doubt one of the best movies I've seen in a long time. I would even go so far as to say it's one of the best Dreamworks movies, period. And I know some of you might disagree with me on that one, but you can't deny this movie succeeded beyond all expectations. And I really think the odds were stacked against them. Dreamworks has had a lot of luck in recent years, with movies like The Croods: A New Age, for example. I enjoyed the original Croods movie, but not nearly enough to warrant a sequel. And yet, despite low expectations, they did an okay job. Not nearly as good as Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, but still pretty good. And the bad guys did even better. I never bothered seeing the bad guys in theaters, but when I saw it on TV, I was very impressed. The story was great, and the animation was amazing. I think it's safe to say Dreamworks have been on a roll in recent years. They've managed to produce some really good films, but Puss in Boots: The Last Wish blew them all away. I know it might sound crazy to believe, but somehow this movie managed to become the best movie of 2022. Nobody would have ever predicted this, but somehow it happened. Somehow this movie blew the competition away. They must have gone through 5, maybe 6 rewrites before finalizing the script. There's no way they wrote it in only 2 weeks. A script this good would probably have taken them months to write. I honestly can't find a single thing wrong with this movie. Usually, when I watch a movie, I can at least find one thing that I don't like about it. Whether it's slow pacing, or too much exposition, or something. No matter what movie I watch, I can usually find something I don't like about it. But that's not the case here. I love everything about this movie, from the animation to the jokes. Everything seems to land just right. They nailed it. You wouldn't think it was possible in this state of age that a movie could be written this well, but somehow they nailed it, against all possible odds. If you were to honestly go back in time to like 12 months ago and told me how successful this movie would become, I honestly would not believe you. Nobody in their right mind would believe you, because sequels never do this well. Never in all of movie history has a sequel ever surpassed all expectations like this. I wouldn't compare this movie's success with anything else. This movie is in a league of its own. I still remember over a year ago when I originally saw the first trailer for this movie, my expectations were low, because I didn't really enjoy the first movie that much. The first Puss in Boots movie was okay. It's not the worst movie of all time, but it's certainly not a very good movie either. I wouldn't even recommend watching the first film unless you really want to. The original film was okay, but it's got Humpty Dumpty for crying out loud. You may be a fan of the first movie, but nobody is a fan of Humpty Dumpty. You don't really have to watch the first movie to enjoy the second one, and the Puss in Boots TV series is even worse. It's completely unwatchable. I would never recommend the TV show, but I definitely recommend you check out The Last Wish. Believe me, I was skeptical at first too. Even when the reviews for this movie started coming out, I was skeptical. I mean, how could I not be skeptical? We're talking about a sequel to a movie that nobody asked for. Nobody enjoyed the first movie. So I would hardly expect the second movie to be anything better. When I heard the reviews for this movie were positive, I thought people were mostly just impressed by the graphics, but I was so wrong after seeing this film. I loved everything about this movie. The graphics are great. The story is fantastic. Even the actors did a fantastic job with this movie, especially Antonio Banderas. He just brings so much life to this character. I almost feel like he's been practicing since the last movie, because he does such a stellar performance compared to the other films. The villains in this movie are great, but my favorite would have to be Death. He is just the perfect villain. There are dozens of videos on YouTube explaining why Death is the best villain in the movie. So it's really almost pointless for me to explain why he's such a good character. But I'm going to anyway. Out of all the villains in this movie, Death is by far the most threatening villain that Puss in Boots has ever faced. He's finally come face to face with a villain he can't defeat. Puss has finally met his match. Puss in Boots usually has no fear. He's never been afraid before, until now. Death is way too strong for Puss to defeat, and he knows it. Compared to the other villains in this movie, Death is the most intimidating. Every time Death appears on screen, you see the fear in Puss's eyes. And that's how you know the stakes are higher. Puss is down to his last life, and he knows he can't take a risk facing off against Death. Characters like Goldilocks and the Three Bears are not much of a challenge for Puss in Boots. He's defeated giant monsters, for crying out loud. He can defeat Goldilocks easily. Big Jack Horner might be a bit more of a challenge, but still no match for Puss in Boots. Death, on the other hand, is much more threatening. He's the best villain in the movie. What I like the most about him is his iconic whistle. It's enough to send chills down your spine. Not only is he the best villain in this movie, but he's the best villain Dreamworks has ever created. I didn't think Shrek 5 would be any good, but now after seeing this movie, I think it's got a good chance of being a big hit, especially if it's as good as this movie. I never thought I would look forward to seeing another Shrek film, but I bet this is going to be the best Shrek movie yet. I urge you to see The Last Wish if you haven't already. This film needs everyone's support. You might not believe it's that good just because of the reviews online, but trust me, this film is definitely worth watching. This movie definitely gets a 10 out of 10 from me, and it is well deserved. If this is the future of DreamWorks animation, then they have a bright future ahead of them. I can't wait to see what they'll do next. Well, that's it for this video. Let me know what you think of the movie in the comments, and I'll see you next time.